would you like to introduce yourself and then go right into the talk that you have in mind?
Yeah, you bet. So first of all, honored to have this opportunity to interact with all of you. This is, you guys are obviously a dynamic, ambitious, smart group of people. So I probably have as much to learn from you as you do from me. But what I want to do today is just share with you some of what I've learned about sales and kind of hit it at the high point. You all are coming from a lot of different perspectives. Some of you are selling to big business. Some of you are selling to small business. Some of you are selling to consumers. Some of you already have customers. You've been in business for multiple years without even doing sales. And one of you said that. And some of you haven't even closed your first deal. Some of you maybe haven't even developed your product yet. So you're coming from a wide variety of backgrounds. We're going to just touch on some general topics that I hope are going to be relevant to as many of you as possible. And at the end, I'll also share some information about how you can follow up with me. If you think that I've shared something that was interesting or valuable, or you'd like to talk with me further, you can set up some time to talk with me and have open office hours. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll kick this off. So thanks to John also for putting this together. I really appreciate Seattle Angel Conference and the work that you guys have done. If you have not applied to the Seattle Angel Conference, I would encourage you to do it, even if you think there's no chance you'll ever possibly make it. The experience of going through the process is totally worth it. And that's coming from somebody who went through the first round and didn't make it. So, but I learned a ton about the whole investment process, and just it really helped me to also distill in my own business what I was trying to achieve. So I'll just make that plug for the Seattle Angel Conference. Okay, so just to introduce myself, can you confirm, somebody, that you can see my screen and it has my name on it? Give me a thumbs up or something.
Yeah, it looks great.
You're good, boss.
Okay, cool. So, so just to introduce myself quickly, I'm the founder of Brain Squall. In the course of my 30-year career, I've helped 5 different startups in a variety of roles. And the one that surprised me the most and that kind of gets me the most excited now is sales. I have worked in basically every role that you can have that's involved with facing the customer. I started in tech support 25 years ago. I've since worked in business development, channel management, sales operations, and sales process design, sales development. I've been a straight sales account exec. I've been a VP of sales. I've been a VP of customer success. And most recently, I was COO of a small software company responsible for all sales, services, and success. So I love customers. I love asking questions. I love learning about what people need and marrying my solution to their needs. And finally, I love asking for money. At the end of the day, that's sales in a nutshell. So we could just end the talk right there and say it's about connecting people, connecting needs with solutions, and then asking for money. But I'm going to go ahead and elaborate on a bit more than that. On the right side of the screen is a list of companies that I've sold to or negotiated contracts with, either as an initial sale or an upsell. So, and that's a partial list, but these are just kind of, I was kind of racking my brain recently thinking, okay, who are all the companies I've dealt with over the years? And I kind of shocked myself when I looked at the list again, because I just realized how many pretty substantial companies there are there. And for the benefit of Pradnya, if I'm saying it right, Pradnya Dash, all of that experience was in selling legal technology. So, so I've done I spent a lot of time in the legal tech world. So that means that all that time I was selling to lawyers, which is a very tough crowd to sell to, and even tougher to negotiate contracts with. So in any event, that's my background and experience. So, so let's look at this T chart. Sales is not evil, I say. So I'm going to actually ask you to take yourself off of mute and tell me an example, not details, but just give me like a word or two to explain an evil salesperson or a cool salesperson. Any experience you've ever had. So Blurt it out.
Used car salesman.
Car salesman. That's the very first thing everybody thinks of. And that you're talking about a cool salesperson, right? Not evil? Yeah. Other way around,
Sure.
right? Yeah, no doubt. Okay, it's amazing how everyone immediately thinks of car sales. Okay, but what are some other words that come to mind for good or bad? Tell me, say this is good or bad, and then say what it was.
A cool salesperson isn't trying to sell you anything.
Okay, not trying to sell you. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Somebody else?
Provider.
A good salesperson can understand your pain.
Okay, awesome. So they understand. All right,
Yeah.
excellent. Anybody
Evil,
else?
evil is transactional sales.
Transactional. Okay, they're just like, get it done.
Let-
Next.
Let's like always be closing, always be closing.
ABC. Okay, sweet. You're getting ahead of me, but that's perfect. Awesome. Okay, anybody else?
A good salesperson tries to understand what your needs are before they try to make a sale.
Excellent. Okay, so they're asking questions first and then sharing their thoughts after. Excellent. Okay, keep going. Anyone?
Evil sales. I had a bad experience with the timeshare salespeople.
Yeah, super pushy, right? Super pushy. Hey, but you got something free out of it, I hope.
Yeah, but it wasn't worth it.
My wife and I love those because I'm in sales, so I'm like, yeah, I know all your tricks. Like, you're not going to fool me. But they are very, very good. Some of them are incredible. Some of them also, they kind of figure you out. If they know you know, then they don't push that hard. They're like, this isn't going to work. Anyone else?
So the evil salesperson as of late is the 15 emails all trying to feel guilty because they spent 30 seconds looking at your website.
Oh yeah, right. Like, oh, I know you. You sell software, therefore I'm gonna give you this whole thing a thing. Yeah, classic. Okay,
Why
cool.
haven't you responded to my email yet? Because I sent you 10 emails. What's the problem?
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Or,
I absolutely agree with that one. Absolutely agree with that.
yeah, the subject line says regarding, as if you already have some kind of thing going on with them, which you don't.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to put yourself. Oh, you got one more.
Good sales is all about building relationships.
Relationship. Yes. Excellent.
It's about built on trust.
Trust. I love it. Beautiful. Relationships and trust. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to all put yourselves on mute. That was a great exercise. Thank you for participating. Sometimes I do this kind of thing and nobody talks, like crickets. You guys are awesome. So put yourselves on mute though, so we don't have to listen to somebody's cat or who knows what's going to happen in the background. And let's see if I got a lot of these. So I said that an evil salesperson starts by talking, and a cool salesperson starts by listening. Right? A number of you guys talked about that. An evil salesperson is focused on the deal, right? They just want to get the deal. And a cool salesperson is focused on the problem solution fit, right? They're looking for the problem and they're identifying the relationship between the problem and the solution. The evil salesperson is tricky. And a bunch of you guys gave examples of that, right? Whether it's tricky emails, tricky things they do with the condo they're trying to sell you, whatever. I hate tricks. Anytime somebody tries to do something tricky, I hate it. Even, honestly, even stuff that you might not think of as being tricky, but to me, like pricing, like $7.99, just call it $800. Just call it $800. I know psychologically you're gonna win more deals with $7.99, but to me that's tricky. It's just a yellow flag. I just don't like it. I'd rather just go ahead and pay the $800. So that's tricky. Cool sales is totally straightforward, right? This is the price. This is what you're doing. This is what you're getting. Evil sales, when they lose, they just walk away, right? Cool sales, when they lose, they say, you know what? I think you might be better suited for this other organization. They know the space. They know what they're doing. And so they actually go ahead and make a connection. Holy cow, that's a great thing to do. I've done that a bunch of times. I've been talking to someone and they say, oh, your price is too high. Great. I can recommend this other solution that you might find to be more appropriate for what you're trying to achieve. Evil sales, when it's over, you never want to see them again. Like you're just like, whew, I don't ever want to see that person again. Cool sales, you'd be glad to see them again. They're helping you. They're helping you do something. right? So like I have products that I use right now that I'm a raving fan of. And when that person initially sold me that product, I was glad for that help, and I would be glad to hear if they have anything else they'd like to sell me, because I mean, that first thing was so great. I would love to hear more. So, so that's my kind of like a short assessment of, you know, like what's the difference between evil and cool, we'll say, just for the sake of being something opposite of evil. But let's go ahead and dig into this a bit further. Thanks for that exercise with me, guys. I really appreciate that. Today, I want to look at really just two things. We don't have a ton of time, so I want to just hit on these two topics and really dwell on them. If you have a question, feel free to send something in the text, and then John, if you can maybe help me at the end, we can compile the questions and dig into them. But I want to offer to all of you
no problem.
that
In the chat. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so if you have a question, just go ahead and put it in the chat, and then I'll let John kind of be the person to either interrupt me if he feels like he needs to, or at the end, we'll just hit the questions. But I want to just tell you too that when we're done, I'll definitely try and leave some room for questions, but also I'll also give you my contact information. If you want to follow up with me, I'll give you a Calendly, and you can schedule 30 minutes on my calendar, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about whatever it is that you're working on. So, so just want to make sure that that's made available to everybody right out of the gate. So the two things we're going to look at is who should be doing sales and what is sales. Pretty high level topics, but we're going to drill into it a bit, all right? And I think this will be definitely relevant to some of the things that some of you mentioned that you're going into right now. So first of all, who is sales? First of all, hopefully, not this guy, right? So this is I just looked up, you know, like sales guy, I think, on the internet, and found this picture, and there's a whole bunch of these pictures. And if they don't have a generic picture, it's a picture of a guy in front of a car, right? Because this is what everybody thinks of is the used car salesman, right? It's like the quintessential evil salesperson. And so we don't want that. So what is sales then? In short, it's everyone. It's everyone on your team. And that's actually an important thing to think about. That might not be what you expected me to say. I don't know if you will have expected that or not. I'm in a SaaS company, and so in our company, not everyone is on the product development team. I have very little in the way of coding skills, so I'm not going to be much good helping code our product. But when it comes to selling our product, everybody's involved. Everybody's involved, because at any point in any small organization, and this is true for large organizations too, but in a small organization like all of ours, everybody is going to have some level of interface with the customer. It's not until you get to be pretty big that you have people who are not going to interface with the customer in some way. So everyone ultimately is in sales and can help with the sales process, and would benefit from learning basic elementary kind of sales concepts. Not the gimmicky, you know, how to trick people into doing stuff, but just the basic concepts that we're going to be talking about here today about what is sales. So that's really, really important to understand. But at the end of the day, especially the person who has to do sales is the founder, right? And so I think it sounded like maybe most of you, if not all of you, do not have a full-time salesperson on your team. And if that's the case, and you'll find also, even if you do have a full-time salesperson on your team, you're still the head of sales. As the founder, as the CEO, you are the head of sales. It's not until you have a decent sized organization and you have a VP of sales who's really leading the sales function that you can even begin to step away from that. The reality is that as the founder, there's nobody on the planet who will be better at selling your product than you. You know the problem, you know the solution, you know the questions to ask, you're deeply passionate about it, and for all those reasons, you're going to be the best salesperson. The first salesperson you hire will not be nearly as good as you. We'll talk in a moment about different qualities of sales, and we're going to look at that in just one second. But just know that no matter who you hire and no matter what they do, you're still in sales. So understanding the sales process and understanding sales qualities, like qualities that are going to help you be effective in sales, is really important for you through the entire life cycle of your business. 2 myths I want to look at real quick. The first one is people hate salespeople. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, and you guys brought up some good examples of cool salespeople. People hate pushy salespeople. People hate disrespectful, rude salespeople. But they don't hate salespeople who are sharing something really awesome with them. The last time a friend of yours said, "You've got to see this movie. It's absolutely phenomenal," that was a salesperson. They were selling that movie. And when you went and watched it and it was as great as they thought it was, as they said it was, you went back and thanked them. So, and you loved that. You were like, "Wow, that was super awesome. What other movies do you have to tell me about?" So people don't hate salespeople. People hate pushy, rude, disrespectful salespeople. The second myth is, if you build it, they will come. One of you said, I can't remember who, I think it was Richard maybe, that you've been in business for a number of years with no salespeople and you've done really well. That doesn't mean that you didn't do any sales. I'm willing to bet that somebody within your organization was still selling. And I think you said yourself, we didn't have a sales function, right? So it's like you didn't have a professional sales team, but still somebody was selling, right? It might have been you, it might have been some other people in your group.
Well,
somebody had to, go ahead.
Everybody, right? To your earlier point.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, cool, perfect. So, some people I know are terrified of sales, and they're like, "Well, if we're just going to build a really good product, it's going to be so good, it'll sell itself." And I'll tell you that even the most insanely viral product, and the one I'm thinking of is Instagram, still had to be sold. It still had to be sold to at least get the ball rolling. Yes, they did have something that was crazy viral, off the charts viral, but it still had to be sold. And even Instagram was not the first thing they built. They built something else, and that didn't work. And they were selling, but then from that they learned and then changed, morphed, pivoted, made something else, still had to go out and sell that. Then it caught fire once the virality kicked in. So still had to be doing some sales, at least initially there. And more likely than not, we're not working on the next Instagram. So we all need to be a part of the process. All right, so let's look at these 2 important qualities that are part of this whole sales process. There's kind of 2 different kinds of salespeople. And if you're extremely lucky, you'll get somebody who's good at both of these. But most salespeople tend to be good at one or the other. They'll tell you they're good at both because they're optimistic, but it'll only be after time you'll be able to tell, or maybe if you're lucky enough to have some really solid references or really have known that person in some other capacity to know if they're really an opener or a closer. But both of these qualities are necessary. And I would strongly encourage you to think about what qualities you have and which qualities you don't have, so that when you do hire your first person, if you go back about that you hire for the quality that you don't have or the quality that you don't want to do, okay? So something to think about. I'm more of a closer. So when I was a VP of sales, I was okay having a team of openers because they would open the door and I could come in and close them. If I was a closer and I had all closers, then nobody would be opening the deals. That would be a problem. So you want to strike a balance between those different qualities. So what are those qualities? Openers know people, right? They know lots of people. They have a Rolodex. They're really connected. They remember names, right? They remember birthdays. These people shame me because I'm terrible with names. I see people that I've known for years and I can't remember their name. It's awful being in sales and not remembering names. But openers are great at that. They remember names. They make introductions, right? They're a maven. They're like, "Oh, you should meet so-and-so. Oh, you should do this. Oh, you know what? You connect, right? They're dot connectors. They get the conversation started, right? They know enough to be able to get the thing going. And I would say that there are more openers out there in the sales world than there are closers. Closers are harder to come by. But that's not to say that openers are bad and closers are good, anything like that. You need both for sure. And frankly, you can have one closer and a bunch of openers and you can get a lot done. As long as you don't try and force the closer to do the opening work, and force the openers to do the closing. If you get a team of 3 people and one of them's a closer and the other 2 are openers, great, let them do what they're good at. You get them to work together as a team and comp them as a team, because it's very difficult to force one to become the other if that's just not their strength. Closers get the deal done. Closers are thinking about getting to conclusion. They're moving the ball down the field. They are not afraid to ask for money. They are about getting signatures. They move the conversation along. They follow up. They're really, really good at following up. Now, you can have somebody who has each of these qualities, and if you're lucky, you'll get somebody who has both of them. But I would encourage you to think about, where are you strong, where are you weak? If you feel like, yeah, I think I can close deals, I'm really good at that, great, hire an opener. If you feel like, well, I have no problem finding people, I have no problem getting the conversation started, but I'm just terrified of asking for money, hire somebody who's a closer, because they will have no problem asking for money. It's fun. I think it's fun. I like asking for money. Anyway, so that's the difference in openers and closers. Okay, so that's the kind of the who. If you get to a point where you're trying to make a first hire, you're looking at your first hiring decision for a salesperson that's gonna be totally dedicated, I would love to help you out with that. I've been the first salesperson at a company that was ultimately very successful, and I ended up becoming the VP of sales, and had a great experience with that. And I've also hired a number of salespeople. I've fired salespeople. Definitely, when you get advice from people on hiring, talk to people who fired people. Doesn't matter how many people they've hired in their life. What matters is how many people they fired, because that is where you learn about what you really are looking for. Because hiring people is a challenge. Firing people really, really sucks, and you learn a lot from that process. So, anyways, I'll be glad to help you with that. So at the end, if you have any questions about hiring, let me know. Okay, second topic is, what is sales? And we'll spend more time here. So ABC, somebody earlier said this. What does ABC stand for in selling?
Always be closing.
Always be closing. All right. So if you have seen the famous scene with, oh shoot, what's his name? Oh yeah, Alec Baldwin in Glengarry Glen Ross. It's an easily offensive scene. So if you're easily offended, don't watch it. But it's a great scene in an incredible movie. But it's very intense. But that is what I would call the old school of sales. And I'm also going to have to say that I'm going to give credit where credit is due. This concept of what I'm about to introduce came from this book here by Dan Pink called "To Sell is Human." There's a little note there in the bottom corner of the screen. Highly recommend the book. Dan Pink is awesome. I worked with him on a project like 20 years ago, and he's a phenomenal guy. He's written some great books. "To Sell is Human" should be read by everyone. It is not about what you think of as sales. It's about how everyone is in the business of selling, because we all have to convince other people to do things. So highly recommend it. In the book, he gives this structure that I'm going to use to kind of go further down the path, and that is a new ABC. Now, it does not roll off the tongue like always be closing, but it is attunement, buoyancy, and clarity. So I think he was just trying to be clever with the ABCs and had to come up with these rather complicated words. But we're going to look at each one of these and kind of talk about what does it mean to be someone who's showing attunement, buoyancy, and clarity. First of all, attunement. Let's see. What do we mean by that? Attunement is listening, right? And some of you guys mentioned that when you talked about a good salesperson. A cool salesperson is somebody who's listening, somebody who listens first, hears the problem, and then addresses the question to the problem. Rather addresses the solution to the problem. I'm sure somebody here has seen this question. People don't buy drills. What do they buy? Holes, right? They buy holes. What's crazy is I know this is true. I've heard this a long time ago, and I know it's true, but I swear I am constantly trying to sell a drill. I am constantly trying to sell a drill. And the reason for it is this. I know the whole problem and I know the drill solution so well that I forget about the hole and I think about the drill. as a founder, it's really, really easy to get lost in the drill, okay? To get lost in your solution and to be totally focused on that. You have to take time to ask questions and listen to your customer, listen to your prospect, and understand where they're coming from. The more you do that, the better off you're going to be. When I was first selling an IP management system, I would schedule a meeting with somebody, and I would schedule 30 minutes, and they would say, we want to see a demo. And I'd say, great, we'll show you a demo in a little bit. I just have some questions for you. And I'd start asking them questions. They said, I don't need more any questions. I just want to see a demo. I said, listen, my demo is going to be pointless if I don't understand who you are, where you're coming from. And I'd keep asking them questions. Now that annoyed them, actually, interestingly. And there were some people who were like, forget it. If you're not going to show me a demo, then I'm not interested. And I said, I'm sorry. If all you want to see is a demo and you're not interested in sharing anything with me, then the demo is going to probably be pointless. So let's just go ahead and end the conversation right there. Now, a desperate salesperson would have like said, no, okay, I'll show you the demo. That's great, but what are you going to demo? You're just going to like just start rattling off a bunch of drill facts. Oh, my drill weighs this much. It can drill this fast. It has 3 speeds. Who cares? Who cares what it has? If you don't understand what their needs are, that's not valuable. So ask questions, but also remember that asking questions is not the same as listening. Listening means asking questions and listening, right? You have to keep your mouth shut. And the longer you can do that, the longer you can get away with it. I would kind of keep asking questions and keep listening and keep writing things down until it kind of like was on the edge of driving them crazy, and then I'd show them the demo. And when I had done that, I was able to show them a demo that was very relevant to what their needs were. And this was in a complex environment where I had a very rich product that had lots of capabilities. I could spend an entire day demoing the product. In fact, I actually spent 3 days demoing the product. But to do an initial kind of 1 hour, I needed to know some things about them. I couldn't just get into it because I don't know what their needs were. So you've got to be paying attention. Second, buoyancy. So buoyancy is about bouncing back. If you know anybody who's done a lot of sales or people who've been involved in sales, they will tell you that an important part of the process is your self-talk. A good salesperson knows you're going to get a lot of rejection, right? That's why salespeople have an easy time getting dates, because they just ask a lot. Like it's not that they're so amazing or so good looking or so successful or anything else. It's because they just ask a lot. They just keep asking and asking and asking, and then eventually somebody says yes. So having positive self-talk is a really, really important part of the sales process. You need to go into it reminding yourself, the person I'm talking to doesn't know about my solution. They have a problem. I can help them with that problem. I care about their problem, and I'm going to introduce them to something that's going to make their life better. If that's not true, then you're a schmuck. If that's not true, then you are the evil salesperson, right? Where it doesn't make their life better. But I know for every one of you that that's not the case. For every one of you, you have something that's improving somebody's life, and you care about that. So it's worth it to get in there and talk to them. It's worth it to get in there and make a phone call. It's worth it to talk to somebody that's going to scare you. It's worth it. So go ahead and tell yourself that it's okay. You're gonna be able to do it. Also know that every deal is going to take longer than you think, right? If you psych yourself up, you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to talk to them once, and they're going to love it, and then they're going to buy it. Okay, not going to happen. It's just maybe you'll get lucky, but generally that's not going to happen. Generally speaking, it's going to take a lot more time, a lot more effort, a lot more conversations, a lot more questions, a lot more answers, a lot more I'll get back to you. There's a lot more emails than you ever dreamed it would. And also remember that salespeople are optimists. I am a super optimist, crazy optimist. And entrepreneurs are often optimists. So you're probably very optimistic. And when you hire a salesperson, they're going to be even more. I mean, optimistic, entrepreneurs are here, salespeople are here. So it's like, they're going to tell you, okay, I'm going to close this many deals in this much time for this much money. It's not going to happen, just so you know. So it's going to take more effort and more time, more energy than you expect. And just keep reminding yourself of that. It's a tough road and you just got to keep going. How do you stay afloat? You stay afloat by spreading out. If anybody here has ever done any deep powder skiing, you know that when you crash in deep powder, when you try and get up, you put your hand down and you just go down into the snow. You put your other hand down and you just go down into the snow. You can't possibly get up. There's only one way to get up in deep powder. You take your poles, you cross them into an X. You hold on to that X and then you put the X into the snow and then you lift yourself up on the X. The only way you can get out of deep powder is by spreading out. The same thing in quicksand, I've heard. Thank God I've never experienced it, but they say if you're in quicksand, you just spread out. Make yourself light and spread out as much as you can. Don't struggle. Struggling is going to make you go down. So how does a boat float? You can make a boat out of cement, right? We have a floating bridge right here in Seattle. How does that work? It works by spreading out. As long as it's displacing more water than its weight, then it floats. So you can make a boat out of cement. So spread out, spread out, spread out. How do you do that? What that means is you've got to have lots of deals. More deals than you possibly think you need, right? If you want to close 10 deals, you need 100, right? If you want to close 100, you need 1,000. And that's 1,000. If you want to close 10 real deals, you need 100 real deals, not 100 like leads. I'm talking 100 deals to get those 10 deals closed. Deals, everything takes longer, and because it takes longer, that's tougher. And other things, you'll have, I say, if you want to close one deal, you have to have 3 surefire, ready to sign deals, and only one of them will close. That's just reality. So you've got to spread out. You have to spread out, spread out, spread out. That's a sales funnel, all right? And so, and we can talk about that all day long, but you've got to have a whole lot of leads to get a whole lot of qualified leads, to get a whole lot of opportunities, to get a whole lot of sure things, to get one closed deal, right? So it is a numbers game. At the end of the day, it's a numbers game. Lastly here is reject yourself. If you are afraid of rejection, okay, and I'm afraid of rejection. I'm just going to be totally honest. I'm super optimistic and I'm outgoing and all that kind of stuff. I'm still afraid of rejection. But if you are afraid of rejection, go ahead and write yourself an email rejecting yourself, right? Write the email that you're afraid of and be totally realistic and honest about it. Don't be a jerk. You know, people aren't jerks. Be nice, but reject yourself. So give yourself a presentation and then reject yourself and see how that goes. What you'll discover is it's not as bad as you think. It's just not as bad as you think. So once you've seen it in writing, you've kind of gone through that experience, then when you get a real rejection, it won't be so bad. So you got to stay buoyant. All right, last, clarity. Be clear. Be clear. It's extremely important. Number one, what is your offer? What are you offering? This might seem obvious, but it's amazing how many people get this wrong in one way or another. An offer is a proposed exchange, right? It's an exchange between you and me. I'm going to give you X in exchange for Y, right? So what is your X and what is their Y? Just be really clear about it. When does it start? I'm going to give you money now, but I'm going to get something a month from now. I'm going to give you money now and I'm going to get something right now. I'm going to give you money, you know, I'm going to get something right now and I don't have to pay you for 30 days. Okay, that's cool. When does it start? When does it end? How much does it cost? Again, that might seem like so obvious. So, oh, it's really obvious. Our cost and our pricing is really clear. Really? Is it one time? Is it recurring? Is it there's a one-time setup and then there's a recurring something else? Which aspect of it is monthly? Is it monthly or annual? Is it quarterly? What are the terms? What's included? What's not included? Right? And then think back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Nobody likes to be tricked. So don't trick anybody. Don't trick people. Don't sell, oh, I'm going to sell them this and then they're going to have to buy this later. Well, that's tricky. Don't do that. I mean, upsells, I'm all about upsells. I totally agree with that. But don't be tricky about it, right? It's like, hey, if you need this level, buy this level. If you need this level, buy this level. But don't try and trick somebody into getting something and then later we're going to like trick them into now they have to pay. You know, that's Nobody wants to be tricked. I hate being tricked. So don't do that. Besides your offer, and as you think about your offer, remember less is more. There was a study of somebody selling jam, okay, at a fair, and they had 2 different booths. One had like 40 different jams, right? Strawberry rhubarb, raspberry, raspberry rhubarb, strawberry, you know, whatever, all these different kinds of jam. Another booth had just 5 types of jam. The booth with the 5 types of jam outsold the one with the 20 or 40, whatever it was, different kinds of jam, 5x in total sales. Why? Because it was simple. It's interesting. Americans, we're accustomed to having lots of choices. Go to a good grocery store and look at the olive oil selection. It's insane how many kinds of olive oil there are. But it's overwhelming. And so we think, well, because there's so many choices, that's a good thing. It turns out it's actually not. Less is more. If you look at successful SaaS businesses, which is the business I'm in, so that's the one I'm most familiar with, most of them, the far majority of them, have 3 pricing levels. Maybe 4, maybe 2. 5, almost unheard of. So keep it simple and include things, right? Don't have like, oh, there's this, and then there's this add-on, and this add-on, and this add-on, and this add-on. Keep it simple, especially right out of the gate. The worst pricing structure I've ever seen is Salesforce.com. It's absolutely astounding how complicated it is. And the only reason they're successful is because they have so much inertia. And they have completely different salespeople selling different things to different people at different times. So they can afford to do that. You're not Salesforce. Don't do that. Keep it simple. Keep it as simple as possible. And last, positioning. What are you? What are you not? I'll make one more book recommendation. It's at the bottom of the page there. It's this book called Positioning. It's written in the 80s. So there are some very funny things in here. You'll see stuff in here that you'll just laugh at because you'll be like, oh, that's funny, but it was also written 40 years ago. So there's things we know now they didn't know back then. So it's called Positioning. It's by Al Rice and Jack Trout, and the name is in the bottom left corner of the screen. Also in the bottom left corner of the screen is a link to ProfitWell, a company that I actually have no connection to. I'm not even a customer of theirs, but I've used their content. It's phenomenal. So they have a great article on freemium versus trial. So if you're in a situation where you have the possibility of freemium versus trial, something to consider. They've got some really excellent writing on that topic. So when is sales? I was going to talk about that, but I realized I didn't have time. And so I just thought, you know, at the end of the day, sales is now and it's always. You can never start too soon, honestly. So no matter what you're doing, sales is something you think about from the very, very beginning, because you need to start developing customer relationships. So even if you're like totally before MVP, and you're just doing your kind of initial customer interviews, that's sales. That is the beginning of your sales process. So start keeping track of those names. That's it. I've taken up, I think, most of the time here. 2 things I'll say, and then I'll open it up for questions. Number 1, if you want to talk with me again, my Calendly link is right there. I'll make sure that we get it in the meetup notes as well, so that everybody gets that, or maybe John can send it out in an email or something. And then if you're interested in my company, Brain Squall, we are a customer intelligence platform for enterprise sales teams. So if you're selling in a complex environment where you have lots of stakeholders, lots of people that you're interacting with, complex systems that you're selling into with lots of products and processes, and you need to map all that out, Brain Squall can help you with that. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Cool. Thanks so very much. There are a bunch of questions in the chat. I think a good place to start is Suchir says, when it comes to compensation, how do you compensate your openers versus closers? What's their motivation?
Boy, that's an awesome question. Yeah, so what I would say about that is compensate them to do the thing you want them to do. I one time had a salesperson on my team say, hey, do you want us to sell 3-year contracts or 1-year contracts? And our CFO was in the room, and he said, oh, it doesn't really matter. It's the same either way. And I said, and I was this was in a team meeting, and I just said, ignore the CFO. He's wrong. It's 3-year contracts, And the way you know is because look at your compensation. You'll make more money if you sell 3-year deals. So the reminder there is salespeople are very comp driven. They love getting rewards. They love getting acknowledgments. So think about exactly what you want them to achieve and then make sure the comp aligns to that. The opposite is also true, meaning that if you comp them to do something, they're going to do that. So you better make sure that's what you want them to do. So to get more specific, I would say on the openers, you want to comp them on how many qualified leads they're bringing in. So that's like leads that are like legitimate, good, real opportunities. And then I would probably give them some kind of an upside on those that close, because that'll keep them honest. And then on the closers, it's definitely about closing the deals, getting the deals closed.
So the next question was one I put in, which is how do you interview to prove someone's an opener versus a closer when you're hiring? So just because someone says they're a salesperson and they can close might not make them a closer.
Yeah, no, totally. I think what I would do is I would probably say, tell me about, first of all, I never give hypotheticals, because hypotheticals, people just, they lie, right? It's hypothetical. So it's not real. So actually you want experience. And so I would say, tell me about the time that you sold something. Tell me about the process. What happened? And just listen to them explain the process. I think if you see them talking about how they were good at kind of getting people's information and learning about them and figuring out what was the right thing and whatever, if you kind of hear a lot of that, then that might give you a clue that they're an opener. If they're like really proud of the fact that they put a really good price in front of them and they were able to get a contract with really good terms or anything like that, that's going to be, I think, signs of the closer. You might also ask them too, if they have experience in sales, things like who all was involved in the sales process? Because sometimes salespeople are like, oh yeah, I closed all these deals. And you're like, oh great, so how'd that work? And they're like, well, I got this deal and they came in and then our VP came in and they negotiated all the terms and blah, blah, blah. You're like, oh, wait a second. So the VP negotiated all the terms. That's the closer. The person who negotiates terms, that's the closer. So that can be a lawyer sometimes. It can be the VP of sales. It can be the CEO. In the case of the founder, it'll oftentimes be you or a lawyer, depending on how big your deals are. If your deals are smaller, you just do it yourself. But yeah, those are things so ask them about their process. That's the short answer.
Okay. Brian asks, is it harder to close a sale when the deal is free? What would be the approach? Like selling a concept to try since people tend to have negative connotation with something being free equals cheap, or if there's a catch.
Mm-hmm. Nothing's free. So, so I think what you need to be honest about there is what are you really selling? And because there's an exchange, right? They're giving you something because nothing's free. So be honest about what you're getting out of it. So when I see something's free, I'm immediately suspicious, just like you said. And so I'm always like, okay, how are they making money? Right? Just yesterday, somebody was asking, oh, does anybody know a good accounting solution? And someone said, oh yeah, there's this accounting solution called Wave or something, I think. And they said, yeah, it's great, it's free. And then somebody else was like, well, how are they making money? And that was the first thing I thought, well, how can it be any good if it's free? Well, then somebody posted from their website, we make money by selling you additional services like employee payroll services and other things like that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Mint is free. How's it free? Well, it's free because they sell your information to make you a deal on your mortgage. Okay, now I'm cool with that. So I think if you're gonna sell something that's free, still tell them what the exchange is, because it's not free, right? So tell them, this is what you're getting, this is what I'm getting. And now they're gonna trust you, right? Because you're not being a shyster.
That makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
So Suchir says, a hard part is getting the hook to get them to talk. What are some ideas of getting the hook right in the first cold email or call you do?
I like to identify a problem I know they have, right? So I'll say, I was selling patent management solutions, and we're looking at invention management processes and stuff like that. And so I'd talk to a patent attorney and I'd say, man, do you guys have any difficulty with getting invention disclosures? And if you're like, oh yeah, that's a huge problem. Okay, great. Now we have a conversation started. Are you having any difficulty with getting your outside counsel to communicate with you effectively on what the status of your patent is? Oh, yeah, it's a nightmare. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Everybody has that problem. But immediately, two things happen. Number one, we're talking. Number two, I've established some rapport with them because I've demonstrated that I know something about their business. And so they're like, oh, this guy's not an idiot. He actually knows something. Rather than me coming in and saying, hey, let me show you my cool system. It's going to keep you track of your outside counsel. Okay, sales guy. No, but if I'm like, do you have this problem? Do you have this challenge? That's not novel. You probably get lots of emails that say stuff like that, but it's amazing how many people go straight to the drill and they're not asking about the holes. So I think ask about the problem. And if you know a problem they have, you might even use that as a hook. I think that's a great hook. It's like, you can say, I've talked to 4 attorneys in the last week and they all had the same problem. Do you have this problem too? If it's true and it's real, that's a good hook.
So Brad asks, and you mentioned 100 deals. He says 100 deals, isn't it more than the number of leads versus the quality of those? Too many people are spamming. Dick's Drive-In has 17 items on the menu, including ketchup. And so he's wondering if you can't have a smaller number of deals at the front of your funnel.
Well, actually, if I could just say that when someone says, oh, you need all the stuff in the pipeline, what happens is that you tend to just push out a bunch of spam, right? Like the whole, even a blind pig can find an acorn. We don't need more blind pigs. So isn't there a difference between just a whole bunch of stuff and the right kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I want to make sure I'm not conflating 2 different questions. So one question is, how many opportunities do you need in your funnel to be able to get a deal that's going to win, that you're going to win? And the answer is more than you think. And then the flip side of that is, how many different offerings do I need to have to be able to get somebody who's going to pick my offering? And I would say it's less than you think. So the best solution is that you have very few offerings. So Brad, you were saying something about how you're, you have this solution of helping scientists do
storytelling for scientists, right?
Yeah. So, which by the way, I'm super curious about. So, so you're helping that. So you could say, oh, well, they're going to have this need and this need and this need and this need. So I'm going to offer them these webinars, and we're going to have coaching sessions. We're going to have this and that and the other. There's a big menu. Forget about it, right? Go with Dick's, have 17 items on your menu, or better yet, 3, and just focus on that. And then go out to go to the other question. Go out and get as many people as you can in the pipeline, because you're going to be astounded at how few of them respond.
Great. And by the way, that whole thing about Dick's was about a different part of what you were talking about. I just made a mistake when I did that. The point on that was that Dick's has been in business in the Seattle area for 50, 60 years, and they only offer 17 things, including ketchup.
Yeah. They're awesome. That's an awesome business. Yeah. In-N-Out Burger is kind of the same thing, and totally phenomenal business. Yeah.
So Richard asked what your opinion on lead gen services is.
Oh my gosh. If I had $1 for every lead gen email service that I get, I'm very suspicious of those, to be honest.
I think your pause kind of said it all.
Yeah. Here's the thing, okay? So when I hire people, I say I'm looking for 3 qualities: ambitious, bright, and curious. Right? I'm looking for people who are ambitious, bright, and curious. I would probably rather hire like a college student who just wants a job on the side, who's really smart and ambitious and is driven, and pay them a small amount of money to be an intern for me, and get them going, looking for leads and drumming up opportunities. And because I can coach them on exactly what we're trying to achieve, and then use some of the tools, because there's so many tools out there. Phantom Buster is an awesome tool for scraping information off of LinkedIn, other places like that. So you can get these scraping tools, and you can do all kinds of things to kind of get a bunch of names and information and people who you think might be interesting. And then have somebody who's just an ambitious, unexperienced person and teach them exactly what you want them to do, and have them kind of finding and kind of building up opportunities. I am so leery of those services, and they're constantly like, oh, we'll give you all these leads, and yeah, I don't know what to make of them. I would never hire one without having somebody that I know refer me. So that's, if I wanted to use a service like that, that's the first thing I would do, is I'll just ask around, has anybody used a service that you liked and did a good job for you? And what business are you in? Because it's going to be so different for different kinds of businesses, right?
Yeah. Thanks for that. And it's ironic because that's what I did in college. And I feel like now here I am 30 years later as the head of business development, doing the exact same thing as I did in college, right?
You need to go find young Richard. You need to go find young Richard, man. Right?
Yeah, no doubt.
So Stuart had a question, and it's long enough that I'll ask you to continue that conversation. Stuart, could you talk about what works for cold reach outs?
Yeah, so I can elaborate on this a little bit. So, a lot of our prospective customers are all over the world, and I mean, it's a really diverse set, like all over the place. So, I can't walk in the front door, and they're early stage startups, so like you can't just call them on the phone. So I've been trying to figure out how to make cold reach outs effective, and I'll research the company ahead of time. I try to figure out what is it that they need. I craft a customized message to them. I send it up by LinkedIn or I send it by email, and I get really low response rates. And I'm trying to figure out, like, is this a stupid thing to do? Is there a better mechanism, or is it just a numbers game? And curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, that's a totally legit question. Okay, so a couple of thoughts on that. Number one is it is a numbers game. So to a certain degree, you are just going to get a lot of rejection. So I don't know if the amount of rejection you're experiencing is just normal, and you're like, wow, 95 out of 100 rejected it. And it's like, oh, 5% is considered really good open rates for a lot of email campaigns. So that's one piece of it. Another piece of it may be that you're, well, actually, before I say that, I'll say, one of the adages of startup world is do things that don't scale to scale, right? So writing those custom emails, on the one hand, I'm thinking, ooh, that's not going to scale. But frankly, that's what you have to do. And so what I would suggest even is take it a step further, maybe even, and think about how do you look at what you're writing and test it. Can you find 10 or 20 people who are all very similar and write them very similar emails with just one difference between them, and send 10 to one and 10 to the other, and do some A/B testing and just see if this is 5% and that's 7%, go with the 7. That's what A/B testing is all about. So it's like, you might think, oh, it's, they're both suck. And it's like, no, 7% is 50% more than 5%. So go with that, right? I think some A/B testing would be potentially something you want to think about. Another thought too is if you have ever heard of content marketing, is that concept familiar with that? I think content marketing is awesome. Sadly, it's become so popular that people just put out a bunch of shit and for content now. And so now it's like shitty content marketing, but that doesn't mean content marketing doesn't work. Content marketing works great. I just told you guys all about ProfitWell, and I'm not even a customer of theirs, but it's because their content is so good that I'm like telling people about it. I've recommended that article to tons of people because it's a really, really great article. It's super deep, really, really helpful stuff. And I'll tell you, when I get to a point where I need some like kind of, pricing consulting, I will absolutely hire those guys because their content's so great. So, so I do believe in content. And I think if you can create something, some content that's really valuable, that sending that out as part of your equation would be a piece of the equation. And one of the definitions of content marketing that I heard that I thought was phenomenal was from a podcast called Traction, which I definitely would recommend, at least the first 10 episodes. And one of the people on there defined content as doing what your product does in content. So it's like, my product helps people manage the sales process. Okay, good. I'm going to create content that helps people manage their sales process. And it's because it's totally relevant to the same audience, right? And I'm going to give that away, and then I'm going to develop rapport and trust with them through that. So I think content is possibly a piece of the equation there. And then I had another thought, but it escaped me. So, but I'd be glad to connect with you too, Stuart, if you want, and just kind of look at your situation a little bit more specifically.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Stan, do you want to talk about your question?
Yes, I can. Thank you, John. So I get a lot of emails almost daily for people trying to offer me external sales services. Basically, they will sell my product, they will augment my sales team and do things like that. One group of them is saying that they can work only on performance basis. And I'm curious, what do you think about those kind of companies? Do you think they're that good or they're not legit? Or to your previous point before, that they need to be making money somehow. And if they do only on performance basis, probably they can make it from sales, but I'm not sure. So wanted to see what you think about those type of companies.
Yeah, that's totally legit. I actually had a company like that at one point, and we were doing outsourced sales for another company, and then we had just one customer, so we were doing all of our sales for one company, and then we thought about, hey, let's go out and do the same thing for other companies. We ended up not going down that path, but so because I've actually done that, I would assume that there are some legitimate ones. We were certainly legitimate, but I feel the same way about the lead gen. So I'll say this. Here's my kind of caveat emptor for that, or is that the buyer beware? So they're saying, yeah, we'll do it for performance only. What's it going to cost you? It's going to cost you a lot of time to set them up, to get them successful, to get them going, whatever. So it's not free. So even though they say it's free, it's actually not free. Meaning to get started is free. It's really not. You're actually having to train them and get them up and running and all that kind of stuff. So, so I would enter into that kind of an opportunity again, very, very cautiously. It's kind of like if I said, hey, I've got somebody who's willing to work for you for free, would you take them? It's like, what can they do? Oh, they'll do whatever you want. Well, you probably would say no. You'd be like, well, that's just too vague. I don't know anything about them, whatever, right? So free is not always good. So if somebody is offering that, I would, obviously I wouldn't want to hire a service like that wasn't paid totally on performance. I mean, when we did this, when I was in that business doing that, we were paid 100% on performance. We got 30% commissions, and we were not paid anything else. It was just a pure commission, and if we didn't sell, we didn't get paid. So that's the right way to do it. Just remember, you're hiring somebody. It's just exactly like hiring an employee. And then if somebody came to you and said, I'll work for free, you still wouldn't hire them unless you knew confidently that the amount of time you spent on them was going to be reimbursed, right? Could definitely be great, and it could be terrible. I would consider them exactly like hiring an employee. In fact, your first sales employee might come in the exact same way. You might hire your first salesperson by saying, look, I can't afford to pay you, but I think this is a big market, and if you're willing to sell it and you're as good as you think you are, then you can make straight commissions and no lid, no ceiling. Some salespeople would jump at that opportunity. So it's just, you have to kind of balance all those factors out. That's tough.
Okay, thanks.
So I don't see any other questions in here. Anybody have a question they want to come on stage and ask?
I've got another question I'd love to ask.
Yeah, Go for it, Stuart.
Okay, so how do you close your first customers? As in, early stage startups, you often bring on early customers basically for free because they're dog fooding your product and you're a little bit desperate, and it's like, somebody will use my crap and help me refine it, and they get value out of it, and that's great for a while, but at some point you need to actually convert them over to paying. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on how to do that.
I want to jump in on this because I believe that that's not a good answer, because you have not qualified your customers. Customers are people who pay you, and when you give random people free, you still don't know whether they ever would be a customer. And the fact that they're playing with it does not produce customer. So I want to translate your question. Mark, how do you qualify customers when your product does not exist yet so that you can do beta and alpha testing for a price so that you can get into understanding what the customers need, and specifically what specific sub-markets need that are different than the random give it for free to people and then hope that you convert 1%.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, free users is a lead funnel. They're not customers, right? So that's going back to what John just said. And actually that's what that article from ProfitWell is all about, is they're basically saying trial users and free users are both lead funnels. A trial user is a lead funnel for 2 weeks or however long the trial lasts, and a free user is a lead forever or until they stop using it. So that's why they think freemium is better than trial, but they're all still leads. Those are not customers. So yeah, okay, so how do I qualify? I'll say one of my favorite qualification methods scares the dickens out of people, but it is to start with price, start with money. So, this can be tough, but so for instance,
Amen.
What's that?
Amen.
So with my product, we're positioning BrainSquall as a solution for enterprise sales teams. I'm talking to a very large company, a Fortune 500 company, to a sales team there. And one of the very first things I talked about was like, hey, listen, just so you know, my objective here is to get a pilot started, and I'm going to charge you for that. And if you think there's no way that would ever happen, then it probably doesn't make sense for us to really talk anymore. So, and then once you're a bit more established, so some of you are more established, Richard, you've got a product already, you're more established. I love leading with price. I love leading with price. I would, when I was selling enterprise software, I'd come in and we'd sit down with somebody and we'd say, they'd say, okay, tell us about your product and, blah, blah, blah. And once I had a bunch of my questions answered, one of the first things I would do is say, okay, so just so you know, we're we're basically the most expensive solution in the marketplace. Oh, well, how much is that? Well, minimum it's going to be $40,000 for an implementation and $40,000 a year in annual subscription. What? That's outrageous. We can never afford that. Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. I would recommend this solution and this solution and this solution. They're all a lot cheaper. People will be like, no, I really want to see yours. Okay, great. But I'm just telling you, just so you know, that's how much it's going to cost. That's a great way to separate the wheat from the chaff, right? Just come right out and say, look, this is what this is going to cost. Because you'll get people who are in their mind, they're thinking it's going to be 1/10 of that. And as a salesperson, a lot of salespeople, that's the difference between a closer and an opener. An opener doesn't want to talk about price because that's scary. That's closing kind of stuff. A closer wants to talk about price at the very beginning, because if you can't close it, then who cares how many doors you open? So that's something to think about and watch out for. So Stuart, if you're trying to find some kind of early customers, is to say like, look, I think there's a problem. I think there's a solution. I want to charge $1,000 for the solution, and could you imagine doing that? And just start with that. Try it out.
I think one thing to add to that, the differentiation between an opener and a closer too, is if you've got that opener that is reluctant to talking about price, then that's part of what you lead with, or part of the initial conversation. chances are they're going to undersell you. You're going to be locked in for the life of that customer on some low rate that is either not profitable, not sustainable, and really not good for long-term relationship. It takes so much effort to move a client off of that once you've established it.
I have a terrible story relating to that. I was COO of the last company I was operating, and I came in after the company had been in existence for 6 years. The CEO was not a negotiator. He was not a sales guy. He hired a woman who was an attorney who liked to think of herself as a salesperson, and she was extremely successful. She did a great job selling. She sold so many deals, unfortunately, because she was an opener, not a closer. She way undersold, and we had one of our customers was McKesson, okay? They're like top 20 in the Fortune 500. They were paying us something like $10,000 a year for a product to manage their intellectual property portfolio. This is freaking McKesson. And when we went back to them and said, you know, your pricing should be closer to $40,000, they split a gasket and they just went bananas. And they were our worst customer. They were the biggest pain in the butt. They had the most complaints, most questions. So you're absolutely right. You do not want an opener closing deals. Absolutely not. They'll way undersell. So you got to be really, really careful. Make sure if you have an opener who's afraid of money, then you just don't let them talk about that, right? Let you introduce that as soon as you come into the equation. Let them just get the meeting scheduled. Yeah. That's another difference between an opener and a closer. Opener is always trying to discount the price. An opener is always asking the CEO or the VP, hey, I got this deal, it's really good, we're gonna be able to get it, we just need to discount the price 50%. What? You haven't been able to sell the real value? What are you talking about? No way. You sell the real value, get back out there and sell. That's an opener versus a closer. Closers are trying to increase the price. Closers are like, oh, normally it's 100,000, but I think we can get 150 out of them. That's a closer.
You know, everything that you guys said, I totally agree with. I mean, you know, customers aren't actually customers until they're paying you. You know, freemium and free trial are just, you know, they're marketing tools. They're not actually sales, and they're not actually customers. I totally agree with all of that. But at the same time, I still find myself in a situation that I've actually seen other startups in, which is that you do have a couple of early customers that you get on board. I mean, you know, John will say they're not really a customer, and that's fine. You know, it's somebody who's been trying the software, and they, you know, you can actually see them take a dependence on it as part of their business, and they say, this is great, I love this, I want to have this for the rest of my life. I mean all of that is great, right? But you still got into that relationship without actually charging them money, and at some point you have to have that conversation and convert them. And you always, I mean, I was trying to give advice to a friend of mine who's in this situation, like, where he has his initial person using his software, and he needs to have that pricing discussion, and you don't want to be a jerk and drive them away, but at the same time you have to get like revenue out of this, otherwise it's not a business, it's just a hobby, right? So, you know, I think it's a common situation, and I wish there was a you know, I wish I had more ways of thinking about this and approaching this. Yeah. Maybe it's just to, like, you know, put on your seatbelt and have the conversation and do it and see what happens, right? But yeah. I would love to have more thought to it than that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, somebody who's talked about this quite a bit is, oh shoot, what's his name? Dang. Basecamp. Jason Fried, is that right, John? Yes. Basecamp, Jason Friedman, there we go. He's talked about firing customers. He's talked about raising prices, getting rid of products, all those things. He's got some great writing on these topics. But one of the things he's done is he's talked about raising prices, which is what you're talking about. You're raising the price from free to price. That's a price raise. And when you do that, some people are going to leave, but a lot of people are going to stay. And some people will say, man, we've been waiting for you to do this. You know, we need, of course this is worth something. Of course I'll be glad to pay you for it, right? I mean, have you ever, I don't know, for me, like I came across a product 3 days ago on my phone. It's a water tracking app, right? Like I was talking to my health practitioner, and she was saying, hey, you need to drink more water. And I was like, I need somebody to gamify it because that's going to help me. I found this app. It's totally freaking awesome. I love it. It's called Hydrilio or something like that. And then there was an opportunity to pay to use it or have the ads. I was like, I'll gladly pay. I love this product. It's $8. Of course, I'll pay for that. No problem. So if you have people who are using it and they're getting value out of it, I would say to them, hey, we need to charge for this. One thing you might consider when it comes to negotiating is the first person who gives $1 is the loser, usually, for negotiating. So you might even say to them, hey, listen, I want to be just really vulnerable with you. We need to charge for this. And so my question is, what do you think would be the right price we should charge? And then I'm going to start charging you that price.
What do you think the value is? Yeah. Change it into that value conversation.
Totally. And let them tell you. You might be thinking, oh, I want to charge $10 a month per user. And they might come back and say, oh, we think $25 per month per user. And you're like, whoa, it's 150% more than I thought. You got nothing to lose. You already have a rapport with them. They owe it to you to do that. And if they're jerks and they're like, oh, no, we want to use it for free, they're not your friends.
Yeah, actually, that kind of aligns with one of my thoughts about this, which is that with the early customers, treat it in some ways as an experiment of like, I want to see what happens if I do this. Yep. And to some degree, and with some of them, you can be vulnerable and say, what do you think works, right? Yep. And you use that to like, try different things out, just like you were talking about, like A/B testing with like, with emails. Like you can do experimentation and have that sort of mentality with the early deals to see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, I've been talking to businesses before that are giving me a free service, and they're like, hey, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, hey, listen, I'll tell you what, if you add this, this, and this, I will pay for this. I'll gladly pay $50 a month for that. And they're like, well, that's our goal eventually. I'm like, well, of course it is. So, like, but just so you know, I'll pay $50 for that.
And let me just throw this in from somebody on the other end of it. Sometimes I'll have an idea of what my budget is, and if somebody comes in way underneath, I'm like, okay, either you don't know what you're doing, or you're going to try to do one of these tricky upsells.
Yeah.
And the other thing is sometimes I have a budget that I need to hit upwards. Right? I need to spend a certain amount of money because that's in my budget. So it's not always the low price is my point.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. Yeah.
So for startups, I don't think that it's, the one thought is, I think that it's important to realize that you don't have to sell the product to get paid. You can sell other things. Yeah. And one of the things that you can sell is the slot in the group of people who get to use it for the next month or the next 6 months, right? So you can sell participation in the dog fooding. And so there's the second thought is there's no particular value in collecting friendships and relationships with the people who are going to only pay you nothing unless they become evangelists.
Yeah.
And so the payment that you get from the free is evangelism. And if you can't measure evangelism from free, then a free tier is not in your benefit. Yeah. And so I never see for startups a value to having free dog fooding. If you do not believe there's people with enough pain that they will pay you to be part of the alpha definition, like when Mark was saying, I will pay you $50 for building those things, my response would have been, great, our cost to build this is $30,000. Are you willing to give us $300 so we start work on it today? And then that qualifies him as somebody who's an early adopter who really wants that. And then you can charge him $50 a month later for that, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So the place where I see founders having trouble is not only are they stuck on selling the drill, they're stuck on the drill as being the only thing they can sell.
Right.
And so there's other things that you can sell that end up qualifying people as customers, people who are willing to pay for solving the problem, right? Even if that's, hiring a bunch of people to bail the boat by hand with teacups. It's still paying to solve the problem. And once you qualified them into that narrow group, then the testing becomes much more valuable. So sorry for getting on my soapbox. Are there other questions out there that people want to ask? So I saw a post from Stan asking if you will share the slides.
Yes, I can.
And I'm planning to post this recording onto the YouTube channel. And so it'll be available there for people who care about it. Any last questions? Okay, I'm not hearing any last questions. Mark, is there anything you want to ask this group of people that would be useful for you?
I would say if you feel like this has been helpful for you, then please follow up with me. I'd love to help you out some more. So yeah, I love feedback. So if you feel like I missed something or whatever, yeah, feedback would be great.
So one of the things that I would give you,
so let's give it some time.
Direct feedback in my little soapboxy way is that this is a point at which you could have asked, could you please tweet about me? And on your lovely thank you page, you have no Twitter address for us to access. And so you can't actually make that request to tweet about me and say what you got. Name one thing that you got and post it on Twitter right now and say that this is going to be on the Seattle Angel Conference YouTube thing later on. So
that's some very good feedback. I'm terrible at Twitter.
I'm a fan of Twitter because it helps you find the connectors.
Yeah.
So the people who stay on Twitter are the connectors, and you can then spread the word more widely. So everybody who has a Twitter account, if you would choose to send something out, Mark, would you put your Twitter address? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that'd be phenomenal. Thank you, John. This is why my advice to everyone is stay close to John. He's always giving excellent feedback.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it, Mark. I really appreciate you're doing this, and you're doing another one of these, right? When are you doing that?
Yeah, so coming up here in a couple weeks in November, I'll be doing another conversation. In that one, we're going to be looking specifically at B2B, and even more specifically, kind of how do you approach the B2B environment, especially if you're going after the larger organizations. There's a lot of different paths to that, right? There's kind of the pilot path, there's the B2C to B, there's the B2E direct. So that's been a lot of my experience in that area. And so I wanted to get into kind of more nuts and bolts on working in large environments, and when is that good and when is it bad, and what kind of deals what are some of the concerns you're going to have in those bigger deals, and some of the challenges you're going to face going into sell large scale, large cost deals. So that's what we'll be talking about here in a couple of weeks. It's in Meetup in the Seattle Angel Conference as well.
Yep. Thank you so very much, Mark. I really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for coming. Please do share the Meetup things with your friends so that they can find out about it. I think that we've got some good speakers coming in. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.